Very good afternoon to all of you. I'm so happy to be here. Finest years of my life were spent here on this campus. Sangeeta, thank you so much for inviting me here. And when I was coming here talking about the glorious past, our time, I talked to my friends. Great thing spending talking to them. Do you remember उसमें क्या हुआ था? Do you remember उसका किसके साथ affair चलता था? I know lots of funny things in our life. Thank you so much again. The topic of my talk is Olden Days, Glorious Past. I'm reminded of a caution given by President Radhakrishnan to Chief Justice N.U. Beg on the centenary celebration of the Allahabad High Court. Chief Justice N.U. Beg, as usual in centenary time, talked about the glorious past of the Allahabad High Court. When President Radhakrishnan got up and said, sort of scolded him, it's not necessary to take pride in your past. Think what you are at present. I remember I was there because my English teacher told me to be there. President Radhakrishnan was the finest speaker of English language. I was there. A stunned silence. You don't come. You may be a president of India, but you don't come and insult the host. He had to be answered. And Kanhaiyalal Mishra, the greatest advocate that India has ever seen, a treasurer of this university for many years, he was requested to answer. And he said, past evolves into present and projects itself into future. That's how he began answering the president. Past has a key. It can open the door to the future. Will the future be glorious as it was in the past, or it will be gloomy? It depends the notches and ridges of the key. I'll just tell you about notches in keys of the glorious past. Perhaps if you apply that key into tomorrow's students, today's students, probably it will open the door to glorious future again. I joined the university in 1968. But prior to that, I was coming to university since the beginning of 1960s. My sister joined science faculty in 1961. She did BSc, she did MSc Maths, she did MSc Physics. So she was here from 61 to 67. I joined a year after she left. She would bring me any time the great speaker was here, eminent speaker was here in the science faculty. She would drag me along. Yati, you have to come, listen to the great man. I remember I had 2 talks. One talk was given by Professor Harishchand. Both the talks were in the first half of 1960s. Harishchand was the greatest mathematician at that time. He was invited by Professor Rajen Singh, the head of physics department. They were together class fellows of this university from 1939 to 1943. Harishchand is the same mathematician on whose name Harishchand Research Institute established in Chusee. He talked about relativity, 62. I knew a little bit of relativity at that time, but I must confess, it went. The second time, Professor R.S. Mishra was the head of maths department. He did a lot of research in US. He had a lot of contacts there. And once he invited lots of computer engineers to come. I was again here. My sister said, "Chalo yati computer baat hogi." I was again here. And I remember two things of the talk. The Americans, they were very surprised, the enthusiasm of the students. And they said, "We have been to many places in the world. Never have we seen such enthusiasm among the students as it is the Allahabad students." And the second was an anecdote by Professor Mishra. He said that once he was in America, there was a shopkeeper, he announced discount on different items. So a lot of crowd gathered to purchase things. He also went there. And then the calculating machine of that shopkeeper knocked off. How to calculate, how to sell. And the crowd was getting impatient. Kya baat hai? Then Professor Mishra came forward and he orally did all calculations. And he says that everyone's so surprised. India jo hai, orally sab kaam kar leta hai. So they were so used to the machine. These are two things that I remember. The point that I want to tell you, one day you will be the head of the department. Before you become a head of a department, you will be reader. You will be assistant professor. Invite eminent academicians to your department. Inspire them. This is the first notch of the key to the glorious future. When I joined in 1960, finest students used to come to this university. If you are good, the only place that you can go is Allahabad. I remember that in my batch, if you ask your parents what division did they have in the intermediate, somebody would say second class, somebody would say, oh, good second class. Getting a first class was impossible. None of us had less than 70% in our intermediate. Most of us had 3 distinctions, maths, physics and chemistry. There were at least 10 students who had position in high school or intermediate with intertop. The eminent physicist Deepak Dhar, who got a Boltzmann Prize, and this year he was given Padma Vibhushan by Government of India for his contribution to physics. And I see that before I end my life, Deepak will win a Nobel Prize, and that would be the first person to win a Nobel Prize for Allahabad. There were at least 5 students who had less than 10 points in senior language. But most of the students who were coming to Allahabad used to take maths, and maths result used to be the worst. It never was more than 25%. The reason? The mathematics course was the most modernized and toughest in the country. Now, I'm slightly partisan, but believe me, it was a common saying. One paper of BSc Maths of Allahabad University requires more effort than the entire MA examination in any subject. That was our standard. And the credit goes to one man, Professor Banwari Lal Sharma. In late 50s or early 60s, he went to France. He worked with a leading, a greatest algebraic topologist at that time, Henry Cartan. And when he came back to Allahabad, he modernized the course. Put modern mathematics into it. In BSc, I remember there used to be modern algebra. Abstract, it has no application, kahan se bekar hai, kuch samajh hi nahi aata tha matlab, and it has a set theory, and people used to flunk in modern algebra. Now, it was very important at that time, the university teacher realized to make modern algebra an interesting subject. How many mathematics professor teachers are here? Okay. Have you read modern algebra?
I am teaching here.
Okay. Sit down, then I'll tell you what happened in our class. Have a seat. There's something very, very great. How to make this modern algebra interesting. One day, set theory is a part of modern algebra. Set is a well-defined collection of objects. Like this particular audience is a set. Newly recruited faculty. So it's a set. So one day, teacher came to us, modern algebra, Bhagavan में विश्वास करते हो? I said, हाँ, God, we do believe in God. He says, तो सर्वशक्तिमान है? I said, हाँ. तो उनका अच्छा, is the entire universe within him? पूरा क्या ब्रह्मांड समाया हुआ है? हमने कहा yes. तो उन्होंने कहा then he must be set of all sets, a universal set. हमने कहा yes. I thought क्या बेवकूफी का सवाल पूछ रहे हैं मैथ्स क्लास में भगवान गए मतलब. Then he said, is universal set possible? I said, why not? Okay. He said, sorry if I slightly sound difficult, don't think it's difficult, you will understand it very easily, even if you're not a math student. There are two sets. Set A, which has those sets that are not part of the set. Set B has those sets which are part of the sets. The question is where these sets will lie. B, no difficulty. B can lie within B, B can lie in A. Then he said, consider where will the set A lie? A bombshell. Where will the set A lie? If it lies within A, then contradiction, because set A contains those sets which are not within themselves. Set B, then it contains those sets which are within themselves. BA is not inside A. And slowly we realize a set of all set, a universal set is not possible. Our teacher smiled, oh, now God does not exist, QED. Now, I must say, he makes the subject so interesting, a boring modern algebra subject interesting. And then he told us, this is Cantor's paradox. And he told us another variation of the same, Russell's paradox. Who shaves the barber? There was a village, only one barber shop. Outside the barber shop written, this barber shaves those who don't shave themselves. Question is, who shaves the barber? Think about it, who shaves the barber? And don't say that the barber was a woman, she didn't require a shave. Alright, think about it, and you will find it very interesting. And then he also told us, the most important conference of mathematicians is International Congress of Mathematicians, ICM, held once in a 4 year. And in turn of the last century, in 1900, it was held in Paris. David Hilbert, the leading mathematician at the time, he posed 23 questions. He says, 20th century should be spent in sorting out these 23 questions. If we are able to solve them, then it will take science to another level. And the first question was sorting out contradiction of Cantor's paradox or Russell's paradox. See, point is, he made the subject algebra very interesting. Believe me, we did exceedingly well in our modern algebra paper, and all of us, nobody has less than 40 out of 50 in that paper. We excelled. Point is, the second notch of that key is make your subject interesting. It's a very, very important. Ours was the first batch of statistics. There used to be no separate department of statistics. How many teachers are there from statistics? Is there anyone? Oh, wow. I was thinking. I don't know whether you know this story or not, but here it is. Some papers used to be common that time. I don't know, it was a maths teacher or statistic teacher. One day he says, you know that Nazareth and Mary, Joseph and Mary used to live in Nazareth. They have got a beautiful home there. Mary was pregnant. They could have had a child in Nazareth comfortably. But there was a royal decree. By a royal decree, they had to come to a place of their birth. That's Bethlehem. That is why they went there. And Bethlehem was a city from where all the people spread. So it was very crowded. And Joseph and Mary did not get a place. So ultimately they stayed in a stable where Christ was born. Some of us knew this story. Those were convent educated, जो नक्शा समझते थे ना, convent educated वाले, हम लोग तो हिंदी मीडियम वाले थे, मतलब हम लोग को तो मालूम नहीं था, convent वाले तो सब जरा सा smart रहते थे अपना, तो उनको तो मालूम था. Then he said, do you know that why that royal decree was passed? Now that convent educated people also did not know. He also didn't know. He says there was a crazy statistician there. It's because of him. Teacher. I mean, that's the impression that we gave it to him, our teacher. He must have seen our expression. Acha, chhod le. You could say statistic for her and the chhod le apni important thing. Just you don't believe me? Okay. There's a book called Facts from Figure from M.J. Moran. Read that. This is how the book begins. Now, this particular book, Facts from Figure, what Ramayana is to Hindu, Quran to Muslim, Bible to Christian, Facts from Figure by M.J. Morani is to statistician. This particular book explains the most difficult concepts in statistics better than any book that you've read. It's a classic. This is how he introduced. This book was not recommended anywhere. No one used to talk about it. This is how our teacher recommended a good book, general book to us. It's not true only so far as maths or statistics department was concerned. Let me tell you about physics department. We had general properties, we had heat, and we have sound. The most difficult aspect of three subjects is second law of thermodynamics. Basically, second law of thermodynamics says heat flows in a one direction, from higher temperature to lower temperature. And in a scientific language, it means entropy is increasing. If you want a heat flow from a lower to higher, like this AC is doing, then you have to apply outside force, like electrical energy. Otherwise, heat will not flow from cold place to higher temperature. Entropy is also a measure of disorder. So basically, the entropy increases means disorder increases. For example, in a library, students come, take out a book, blah, blah, blah. If the librarian doesn't keep the books in the proper place, they will get disorder. After 1 week, after 10 days, you will find books not in place. Disorder is a thing. After explaining it, now here lies the crux. He said, have you read Origin of Species? Almost all of us had. Yes. What does it say? He asked one of the students. He says, sir, hum log to evolve kar rahe hain from the lower order to higher order. Say, what is happening? Entropy says disorder is increasing. Here the order is increasing. That means entropy is decreasing. So either the second law of thermodynamics is correct or the origin of species is correct. He didn't tell us the answer. एक दो दिन हो गए, बहुत हम लोगों ने सोचा, समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कौन सही है, बट सही तो दोनों हैं, बट कौन सा सही है समझ में नहीं आ रहा। फिर एक सर, the other day you were talking about, you never told us, sir, which one is true? We think both are correct. Where is the catch? He says, there's a book called 1, 2, 3 Infinity by George Gamow, and there is Asimov on physics. I think, why don't you read it? We took it out and we read George Gamow. That's how he introduced her to George Gamow. Now, George Gamow and Isaac Asimov, they have written books on science, almost every subject of science, and they explain difficult aspect of science in a most lucid way. Asimov wrote finest science fiction as well. Third notch of that key is introduce good general books to your students. They are very necessary to clear the concept. And I told you how they were introduced in my time. Now, before I go into law faculty, because after I did my BSc, my father was a lawyer. क्या करोगे, कहाँ जाओगे, मतलब वकील बन जाओगे, किताब का क्या होगा? You know, lots of emotional pressure and all that. So, law joining कर दिया. I'll tell you two incidents from the science faculty. About two teachers I want to tell you. Now, I'm telling you about two teachers, but this was the normal teacher of Allahabad University. I don't know what kind of experience you had, but just I'll tell you two examples why the Allahabad University was so great. One teacher is from Maths Department, Dr. R.D. Pathak. His concept was clear, a very good communicator. He used to teach very well. And BSc Part 2, he used to take our class in mechanics, statics and dynamics. The class used to begin from 2:40 to 3:30. And the class never ended at 3:30. It never ended before 4 o'clock on any day. And if any one of us saw, घड़ी देख ली, अरे घड़ी देख रहे हो? मैं तुम्हारा भविष्य बनाना चाहता हूँ और तुम घर जाने की जल्दी पड़ेगी and तुम घड़ी देख रहे हो? And nobody could see. Fourth notch is always consider your student is more important than your time. Don't be in a habit of running away from it. You will never make a great teacher. Next, yeah, he deserves a clap. Thank you so much. He, R.D. Pathak, when I was coming here, I talked to many of my friends, the only maths teacher they remembered was Pathak. मैं क्या पढ़ाते थे? और उनके बाद एक चीज और थी R.D. पाठक साहब की पढ़ाई गए। मैं जब ये क्वेश्चन पढ़ा रहा था तो मैंने ये सवाल पूछा, अरे भाई वो लड़का था 3 साल पहले संदीप त्रिपाठी, अरे आजकल देखो IPS में है, वो देखो उसने इस सवाल का जवाब दे पाया, कोई नहीं दे पाया। अच्छा ये सवाल मैं पढ़ा रहा था तो यहाँ मैं फंस गया था, मैं फिगर नहीं बना पा रहा, तो dr/d थीटा जो था वो डिक्रीज कर रहा था और लिप्स तो ऐसे होता है, वो उसमें dr/d थीटा बढ़ रहा था, मैं समझ नहीं पा रहा। कोई लड़का खड़ा हुआ, उसका कुछ ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, उसने बताया कि भैया ऐसे नहीं इलिप्स होगा, ऐसे होगा, तब dr/d थीटा बढ़ेगा। And he would remember, tell us, and we always very attentive in his class. We also wanted our names to be remembered to posterity. कोई सवाल तो पूछे, हम जवाब देते हैं, हमारा भी नाम चलेगा. That's great. Second instance is about my BSc Part 1 class. Now I was very poor with my hands, and हम तो हमेशा टीपते थे practicals को, कॉपी से. कभी अपने जिंदगी में कोई practical नहीं किया. So one I got a practical is to find out the temperature coefficient of resistance. In metals, if you heat them up, their electric resistance increases. मैं रोना आ गया, आंसू सब बस निकले नहीं, यहाँ बैठे हुए थे. So in walks a gentleman. I have never seen him. I didn't know his name. He walks into our practical lab. I thought, यार टीएडी तो लगता कोई टीचर ही होंगे. External तो नहीं हो सकते, लगता internal होंगे. He comes to me and he understood what's happened. There's something wrong with this boy. He says, बेटा क्या हो गया? क्यों घबराए हुए हो? अब मैं कहा सर हमसे गलती हो गई, हमने तो हीट कर ली, ठंडा ही नहीं हो रहा, कैसे मैं तो फेल हो जाऊंगा. अरे अभी तो बहुत टाइम है. Why are you worrying about it? You're cool now. You're good. Don't worry. अरे ऐसा तो होता रहता. मैं तो बहुत साल से यहाँ पे टीचर हूँ. अक्सर बच्चे लोग ऐसे ही करते हैं. Why are you worrying about it? You will be able to complete this. जान ली. फिर कहते हैं यार ये तुम एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हो. Why the resistance in a metal increases with temperature? A theory was my forte. Now I had gained some fun. I said, sir, what happens when you heat it up? Atoms get agitated. So electrons are not able to transfer energy to another electrons. That is why resistance increases. Then he says, do you know anything where the resistance decreases? I said, yes, semiconductors. He said, why is that? I said, semiconductors have 4 electrons in the outer orbit. When you heat it up, some electrons get free. So the more electrons are available, and it's very easy for electrons to transfer energy. So now, he was very surprised with my answer. He looked at me for some time, and then थोड़ी देर बाद चपरासी आया हम लोग का लैब वाला, जो हम लोग को बताया करता था क्या कर रहे हो मतलब, which हम लोग को. He says, साहब चलिए टीचर जी बुला रहे हैं कमरे में. So I went to the room and I saw that gentleman sitting in that external. Then external asked me those 2 questions again. By the time I had gained my confidence, I answered it. Then he asked me one of the toughest questions in physics, in heat, in general properties, sound, electricity, light, whatever he asked, I answered all. After 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes of grueling viva, तो एक्सटर्नल कहते हैं मुस्कुराए, अब कहते हैं जाओ बेटा अब ठंडा हो गया होगा जाके पूरा कर सकते पढ़ा नहीं. I came back. See जो affiliated colleges होते हैं ना, जैसे ECC, CMT, ये अपने स्टूडेंट्स को ज़्यादा नंबर देते हैं प्रैक्टिकल में 50 में से 50. चाहे लड़का डिजर्व करे ना करे, हमारी लड़की की पोजीशन है बिल्कुल लड़का पिद्दी बेकार दे दिया मतलब. इसी में 10 और 5 नंबर मिल गए. और यूनिवर्सिटी टीचर्स वे वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट. नो यू गिव मार्क्स अकॉर्डिंग टू योर मेरिट. I got in that practical paper 47 out of 50. 47 out of 50, which was highest for that period. I didn't know this man's name. Next year he taught us electricity. And then I came to know his name was, he's still alive, I still ring him up, talk to him, Professor Shyamlal Srivastava. He taught us. Give him a clap, he's a great man. The point that I was trying to tell you is, this is the 5th notch of the key. Teachers always knew that this student is in trouble. He requires help. Help him. That's what he did. And believe me, it was true with almost all teachers. And similar kind of instance, many of my friends narrated to me what happened with them in a different way. I did not narrate them because it didn't happen with me. Whatever happened with me, I narrated to you. So always, this is a great help to a student. If you see him trouble, please help. I've been joined कर लिया law. बाप ने emotionally मेरे को pressurize किया. Believe me, how many law, is there any teachers in law faculty? How many teachers in law faculty? Okay. As a judge, I have visited the finest law colleges in the country. Except for one teacher whom I met, not as a teacher, but a director of National Judicial Academy, Madhav Menon. He was par excellence. There is not a single teacher in any university in India, irrespective of whatever national school, any university, who could compare to the teachers, law teachers of my time. They were great teachers, and the teaching style was fantastic. Since I am still connected with law, I have lots of stories about that time, but I'll tell you one story that will tell you how we were taught law. Constitution used to be taught in the first year of BSc. In 1970, the Constitution was taught. Teacher explained to us Article 368, how the Constitution can be amended. And then he says, is the power to amend a Constitution is legislative power or constitutional power? If it's the legislative power, then it's subject to injunction under Article 13. Fundamental right cannot be abridged. If it's a constituent power, then it's beyond article. We discuss blah blah blah. So, अरे नहीं साहब ये कैसे हो सकता है? Or 245 कुछ, you know. Consensus was it was a constituent power. Then he says, if it is a constituent power, then can Parliament abolish Constitution under it? अब हम लोगों ने उस पर डिस्कशन करना शुरू किया. Is there any? And the teacher also told us of a very great decision at that time from Pakistan Supreme Court, 1963 Supreme Court. That decision was given, leading judgment of that decision is by the most ablest and the finest judge ever in Pakistan, the fourth Chief Justice of Pakistan, A.R. Cornelius, who happened to be an old boy of this university. He taught here 1921 to 1923. He taught in BSc, standing first class first. He won all medals in science faculty at that time. And at that time, if you top in science faculty, you get a scholarship to go study at Oxford, England. So from there, he went to England, got into ICS. And when partition took place, he went to Pakistan. That decision, he told us, where they have struck down the constitutional amendment on the ground that there are some limitations. We discussed, little did we realize that in our discussion, we have already held Golaknath case to be wrongly decided. Supreme Court, we decided in the classroom. And we are laying down arguments to challenge the future constitutional amendment. Believe me, same arguments were utilized by Palkiwala in Keshwaran Bharti case to establish the point that basic feature of the constitution cannot be amended. That's how our teachers, law teachers taught us. Bringing discussion into it, and not only discussion, encouraging discussion, actually forcing us to think beyond what is established. And that's a job of a university. It is not teaching what is already there in the books. Sometimes to inspire the student, look, this is a dark area. Well, venture here, you never know that, you will find something interesting. This is the sixth notch of the key. Encourage discussion, force, inspire your students to go beyond what is established. Such great teachers, such great students. What happened? What happened here? This is the most painful thing, not in my mind, but you can't meet a single boy from Allahabad who doesn't feel about it. What's happened? What went wrong? I like to tell you what went wrong. Sorry, I may offend possible Vice Chancellor Mahoday. Possibly I might offend my wife. Possibly I might offend many of the teachers here. Sorry, but I tell you what went wrong here. First generation sees the opportunity. Hey, no, this is opportunity. Let's try it out. We can reach. Second generation toils to climb. Third generation makes it to the top. Fourth generation ensures the best position. That's the time when we were there. Probably it was the end of the fourth generation, beginning of the fifth generation. At that time, teachers, again, participated in all student activities. They mentored the students. Every department had an association. We had quiz competition, we had paper reading competition, we had essay competition, we had debates, we had for every activity there was a teacher who was in charge of the same. We had a very good dramatic club. I saw two of the finest plays here. One play was Mousetrap, Allahabad, another one was Follow Me. It's a story about, it's a dramatic adaptation of a film, Follow Me, about a chartered accountant who doesn't have a time for his wife, and he thinks his wife is unfaithful. He sets a spy behind her. The spy goes behind, follows her, and finds wife is very faithful, and actually she's bored because her husband doesn't give her time. And then as a punishment, tells her, okay, 1 week you will follow your wife wherever she goes. That's the story, and this is the two plays that I've seen. We always used to have one teacher, president of a game. He appointed the captain. Captain, under the guidance of the teacher, held a university championship, inter-unit championship, took the team to this. The life was there. But then fifth generation comes. Fifth generation often tries to see the reputation of the old reputation of being on the best, and doesn't make any effort, and decline begins. Sixth generation, same as the fifth, it accelerates. This happened with this. Sorry, I don't really mean to be very harsh on the teachers, but this is a real fact. And some of the officers of this university, which includes the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor of this university, were equally responsible. They did not appoint teachers on merit. They appointed their relatives. Mediocres, useless people, they came to this university. Teachers stopped taking any interest in the student activity. We wanted to give certain awards. When I went back to physics department, went back to maths department, I was aghast. For years together, there was no quiz competition, no essay competition, no debates. They used to be name by name. There was some president of a game, but he wouldn't appoint a captain. I was associated with 2 games. I played for the university, I captained the university, and I was champion for 2 games here, table tennis and squash. They would come to me, sir, हमको university जाना कैसे जाएं? तो I told the president also, I knew them because I said, क्या करना है? Lax मतलब attitude which is abhorrent. And they would not appoint, and then I said, okay, give them some letter. And I personally paid sometimes money to these boys to go and play in the Allahabad. The important 7th and probably the most important thing is teachers' participation in the student activity, mentoring them is a must. If you don't do it, decline is inevitable. But 6th generation is over. You are not part of 6th generation. You are part of 7th generation. A new generation of teachers. It's going to be new Allahabad University. Always remember that. That Battle of Waterloo was never won on the Battle of Waterloo was won on the playgrounds of Italy. Character is built in the educational institution. Teaching is the noblest of all professions. The teachers, the educational institutions, they make or mar a nation. When you go back to your department, always remember, this was a corridor, this was a classroom where Meghna Saha taught, where K.S. Krishnan taught, where Neil Ratan Dhar taught, where Harvansh Rai Bachchan taught, where Firaq Gorakh. Always remember, the classes where we will hold the classes, this is a place, this is a classroom which once had Harishchandra there, where once Deepak Dhar was there, where once Father Kamil Bulke was here, Dharamveer Bharti was here. It's the same classroom. When you go and take your practicals, always remember that. It's the same practical rooms. Where C.V. Raman, not C.V. Raman, Nobel laureate C.V. Raman came here for many years. Every year, if there was one university, he would come to Allahabad to take, as an external examination, to take Viva. It's the same practical rooms you will do with the practicals. Never forget. You have a very, very dynamic Vice Chancellor. I know her from when she was class 3. The first time when I went there, she was moving in a frock. And I remember there was a holy function, and somebody put a lot of water on her, and she was very afraid of water. And she wouldn't drink even the water the first time when I met her. That's how I know her. She has appointed, I was told, 250 recruited, or 300 teachers. 300 teachers. Never in the history of Allahabad University. 110 teachers. Screening is going on for the post. And I understand they will be appointed this year. And believe me, you are not being appointed because you are related to somebody. You are not appointed because you have some name behind you. You have been appointed because of the papers you have done, because of PhD you have done, because of your merit. Can you imagine? I not only know Sangeeta very well, I knew Sangeeta when I was a child. She got married to a lawyer. And when lawyer, he came to me to be part of our chamber. I took him in just because he was happy to be Sangeeta's husband. We together, the Kalyan Singh case, which actually made the history. It's the first time in the history of the world that by court order, they were reinstated. A deposed head of the state was reinstated. It happened first time in the history. And I was there, and I couldn't have done that case without the help of Sangeeta's husband. You have, both of you, alone she's useless. She can't do anything. With your assistance, with your help, swing can be reversed. We will again reach the top. Remember the 7 notches that I told you. Let me repeat it again. Number 1, invite eminent academicians to your department to inspire students. Number 2, make your subject interesting. Number 3, tell them good books, general books, not necessarily those referred in your classrooms, your syllabus. Often, जो किताबें होती है ना यूनिवर्सिटी रिकमेंड करती है, सॉरी सुनीता, ये तो वही होता है जो टीचर लिख देते हैं किताब, अपनी किताब लिखवाने के लिए उसी को चलवा देते हैं यूनिवर्सिटी. They often do not recommend the good books. Tell them about the good books available. Number 4, always consider students to be more important than your time. Number 5, if you see a student in trouble, help him. I have never forgotten Shamla's message. I always remember him for what he did with me. 6, encourage discussion in your classroom. Force the students to think beyond what is known. And 7, participate, mentor, student activity. That's it builds the personality. Now, if you do that, I have no reason to doubt, हम होंगे कामयाब, मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। जय हिंद।
भूली बिसरी चंद उम्मीदें, चंद फसाने याद आए। भूली बिसरी चंद उम्मीदें, चंद फसाने याद आए। तुम आए तो और तुम्हारे साथ ज़माने याद आए। Which implies that the stories of a past era seem to have been enlivened by your presence here. Thank you so much, sir. We are so glad to have you here. Honored and glad. Thank you. Moving further ahead, this would be an interactive session, so the house is now open for discussions, observations, questions.
So presently I am not a teacher, but I have spent almost 3 decades as teacher. To my mind come 2-3 questions, as you rightly suggested, which have, if I am not diplomatically using the term, degraded the grace of a teacher. In the recent years, maybe 10-20 years, and I vividly remember the mid-70s and onwards, when the standards started declining. Intellectual cloning is not the order of the day which used to be the order of the day. And I will seek your endorsement on 2 things. We all are now trying to make civil servants other categories, but possibly we have left the job of making very good teachers. This is one thing that comes to my mind. The assignment is how many students qualify IAS examinations, how many students qualify other examinations. Second thing, sir, which is a doubt, I would require I would solicit your response on that. That the later approach of the statutory organizations like UGC and AICT, which have mandated the compulsion of PhD writing of those many papers for the API scores, have made majority of the teachers' publication machines also. So of late, rather than doing a quality PhD which reflected in our teaching, rather than writing 2 papers in 5 years' time, we are producing 3 papers every year, and which has taken away our very good efforts to associate with the teachers. So the 7 points, I am privileged to be here, I have taken note of that. If in future I get a teaching assignment, I would like to implement that. I want your take on this. One, our responsibility to do the intellectual cloning, make very good teachers rather than making civil servants who are trying to do that. And second, the imposition of these kinds of norms for becoming eligible to face a selection committee.
You see, when I was here, the physics department had a head of department with Dr. Vachaspati. Brilliant man, but he couldn't understand a single word of what he said. Professor Ranji Lal, maths man, brilliant man, we did not understand a single word of what he taught. So these are the difficulties are there. Many a times a brilliant teacher, a genius man, is not a good teacher. A good teacher, you should have a blend of both. I mean, I think. Individually, if you talk to Ranji Lal, he was fake. In a classroom, he was fake. In a classroom, people like R.D. Bhatt, Dr. R.D. Bhatt was a great man. You know, both things are necessary. It's nature of our society is, it's there, we can't help it. How many people have got into civil services? It is also major, I mean, उसकी मार्केट बढ़ जाती है, शादी में दहेज ज़्यादा मिल जाता है, हम लोग तो वकील से कोई मिलती नहीं थी, मतलब बड़ी मुश्किल से मिली। So that's why both things are there. But that's the question that you're raising me are actually very high level question, and UGC has to think about it. Einstein's one paper, two papers, one of special relativity and one paper general relativity, are more important than all papers ever written. But it's there. Some comparisons to be made, but probably it goes to a UGC level kind of a thinking, where should we do it? But as a teacher, I think your job is to see to it, help a student. Everybody can't become Harishchandra. Everybody cannot become a Deepak. Such students are, seldom they are there. So you have to cater to both kinds of students there.
Good afternoon, sir. It was a experience that we just saw in front of us. I personally know your eloquence. I have seen what you have not mentioned. I have always seen you in the High Court, and sometimes we used to sit there only to see how you spoke. And today you gave the same lesson to all the budding teachers, that this was first of all a lecture in good eloquence. How you presented what you wanted to say was just exemplary. So this is not a session where one should be asking questions to the chief guest. But what I would like to say, that what you have said, and you have taken certain names which are still at least fresh to my mind. I have seen some of those great personalities which you talked about, but they may not have seen. But let me tell you, sir, that even today there are certain pockets, certain islands in University of Allahabad who are doing exceedingly well. It is not so. Most probably in the next 20-30 years, we will have the same type of names of today, because Professor Vachaspati and Professor Banwalia Sharma and all those persons were probably not that as great in their own times. Now that when you say, and yes, they were very great people. So there are islands in University of Allahabad who are actually doing good. Today somebody forwarded me a list of 2% eminent scientists in the world that Stanford University has come out with, and in University of Allahabad there are 16 names who figure in that list. So we are doing fine in the science faculty. Our output in research is better than the national average, and in the end I would like to assure you that we are going to take a pledge that what you said, that we are going to again make this university great. This is the 7th generation, and the 8th generation will again start seeing the dreams to make the university great. Thank you, sir.
There is no doubt about it. Some passages in Allahabad are still great. But what I meant was a general impression. That's all. And I have no reason to doubt. That's what I said. This is a new generation. This is a new type of teachers. And all of you will be selected on merit. You can't imagine the amount of pressure I had for getting some people appointed. संगीता से बात कर लो, अरे विक्रम से कह लो। ये मैंने कहा भाई ना मैं बात नहीं करता। I did not talk to her even once about it, and I know that even if I said it, she would have said, भैया आपका दिमाग खराब हो गया, हम कैसे बात नहीं करते? There's one thing else I want to tell you. This again, I just saw my note. Sangeeta also spoke about it, that I sometimes tell her you're doing something wrong. One of the greatest experiments in the last century was in the middle of that. It happened in Los Alamos, where all the scientists from the world got together to make atom bomb. Niels Bohr was there, and he requested a one man to be there. So a student who was still doing his PhD. And that student was specially requested to join Los Alamos, and his name was Richard Feynman. And when he was asked, why are you asking for this particular boy? He says, Feynman is the only person who could say no to me. There is no scientist in the world who would ever say no to me. Whatever I say, they will accept. But he is the one man who will say no to me. It is also very important to have some people in your life who can tell your faults. Neeta is here. Sangeeta rang me up. He says, Bhaiya, Neeta Di is also here. Should I send her an invitation? So, whether you send her your invitation or you don't send me an invitation, she will be there. I said, all of you are going to say that I spoke very well, because nobody would like to insult a guest. And we will say, oh, you spoke great, you spoke very well, there are going to be a lot of applause. But when I go back home, Neeta will tell me, Jati, तुमने क्या कह दिया? हैं? ऐसा क्यों कहते हैं? ऐसा नहीं कहा जाता, इसको ऐसा कहना चाहिए था. देखो तुमने यहाँ ये गलती कर दी, क्रॉस कर दिया. She is my best critic. She will be there. Also enjoy friendship with those who tell your faults. They are very, very important people in your life.
Thank you so much, sir. I know that we all are teachers here and we have not met our classes today on Saturday, so everyone has that desire to speak, and there are questions lurking in everybody's heart, but we have to put a full stop somewhere. So thank you so much for your presence, sir, and your lecture. And now I may request all of you to kindly stand up for the national anthem.
विनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मा